On a Tuesday that refuses to behave, Port Charles wakes to a pressure change that no one can name and everyone can feel. The air tastes metallic, the kind of morning when choices become verdicts and secrets slip their chains. What begins as a trickle of small, private gambits barrels into a flood of public consequence. By sunset, the city's glitter will be smeared with grease and gunpowder and courtroom dust, and the intimate distances between lovers, rivals, and blood ties will be measured not in inches but in leverage. At the edges of it all, a simple, terrible question keeps repeating: how far will any of them go to turn yesterday into a story that cannot be proven tomorrow? In the house that still hums with the ghosts of vows kept and broken, Carly Spencer has already done the math on risk. She understands the law the way a veteran understands weather, how it looks, how it shifts, where it changes fastest, and where to take shelter. She also understands Sonny Corinthos better than anyone still living in Port Charles, his impulses, his code, his blind spots. Marriage, once a sacrament and a rupture, returns to the table not as romance but as a legal instrument, a shield forged out of rings and signatures, a strategy written in the language of spousal privilege. The offer is not a confession of love, it is a map out of crossfire. If Sonny wants answers, Carly calculates, he may need to earn them in a chapel rather than an interrogation room. It is a cold equation, but survival has always been Carly's truest arithmetic. Beneath the neat lines of a respectable neighborhood, behind a locked door and a basement that smells of damp concrete and old decisions, Rick Lansing dreams of absolution wearing Elizabeth Baldwin's face. In the dream, footsteps descend, light follows, and the past extends a hand. He rises, almost noble, almost forgiven. But the light is only the mind's mercy, and the hand does not arrive. When Rick opens his eyes, the stairs are bare and the room reclaims its shadows. There is no rescue, only the thick patience of captivity. He listens to the silence the way a lawyer listens to a hostile witness, for the tiny tells that might become escape routes. He inventories every sound in the house above, every hinge and pipe, until the floorboards learn his heartbeat and ignore it. Hope does not leave, it metastasizes, becoming a sharp, bright thing that cuts from the inside. Elsewhere, the day builds its first bridge toward that basement. Cody Bell, who has tried and failed to outrun his own reflection, finds himself in conversation with Molly Lansing Davis, the kind of conversation that feels like a mirror held steady. Molly's praise lands not as flattery but as a reminder that choosing the hard right over the easy wrong is less a moment than a habit. She talks about consequences the way other people talk about weather, and Cody listens because he wants to believe the person she sees is real. Threads gather. A tip. A lead called out back, less a place than a compass point, begins to pull Cody forward. He doesn't know he is walking the first steps of a corridor that will deposit him at a locked door, a concrete room, and a revelation that will not be content to change one life when it can tilt several. At the same time, Christina Corinthos Davis and Ava Jerome choose a different kind of exit, not a door but a declaration. They agree, tentatively, fiercely, to step out of the sticky web of the Rick problem, at least for one breath. New life is an ambition here, not an apology. They have been partners in necessity, co-authors of a story they did not entirely want to write, and the cost has been tallied in nights without sleep and days lived at the edge of discovery. Starting over sounds like shore leave. Yet even as they say it, both women know that Port Charles is an ecosystem that recycles its storms. A new life lasts exactly as long as the next crisis allows. For now, that will have to be enough. Crisis, obligingly, is already waiting at the police station. Nina Reeves arrives with the brittle energy of someone who refuses to accept that consequence can be aimed at her. She demands what grief always demands: access, clarity, control, and the fluorescent lights give her nothing back. The badge at the desk is unpersuaded, the protocol is in motion, the room has its own gravity. Assistant District Attorney Justine Turner observes Nina's indignation with the professional detachment of a surgeon watching a patient argue with anesthesia. The law is not cruel, it is indifferent. Nina insists on seeing Willow Tate now, immediately, as if immediacy can bend a process built to resist bending. Justine does not raise her voice. She does not need to. She has the state behind her, and the clock. Inside an interrogation room that seems designed to reflect a person back at their smallest, Willow wrestles with a different clock, the one that measures loyalty against self-preservation. Evidence is a language she does not speak, but fear is fluent. She knows the headline the city wants: tragic wife, jealous impulse, gunfire, and she refuses to wear it. In a bid that is part logic, part lifeline, she pieces together a narrative in which Michael Corinthos has built a scaffold of misdirection from which she now dangles. It is not merely an accusation, it is a survival instinct with a family surname attached. Harrison Chase is the only person in the room who has seen Willow at her bravest and her worst, and she plays toward the fraction of him that might still believe she is worth saving. In Port Charles, truth is often a late guest, strategy tends to arrive on time. Drew Kane, hearing the allegation crackle through the city's rumor mill like a live wire, cannot make the math add up. The man who has survived war zones and memory loss and institutional betrayal refuses the simplest explanation because it feels lazy and therefore dangerous. Willow as assailant is a tabloid photo, the context is missing. He begins to push at the shape of the investigation, pressing for the overlooked scene that, if tugged, might unravel the wrong conclusion. This brings him into collision with Jen Sidwell, a functionary with more power than manners and the kind of bureaucratic gravity that pulls people into compliance. Sidwell plays the game with rules he edits in real time. Drew recognizes the type. He has dealt with men who mistake gatekeeping for guardianship. The confrontation is not loud, it is lethal in the quiet way that careers and cases can be when the wrong ego is in the way. Back in the orbit where crime and love intersect with alarming regularity, Sonny seeks not truth but certainty, two different currencies that often get mistaken for each other. He senses Carly fencing in her answers, senses the strategy beneath the deflection. The old rituals of intimacy, the confidences traded in kitchens and cars, no longer apply. Carly's silence is not an absence, it is armor. She knows what a prosecutor can do with a stray admission dressed up as pillow talk. She knows that the law writes its own romances: witness, motive, means. Marriage, in this calculus, is not a reunion but a firewall. If Sonny wants entry, he will need to cross a threshold that closes certain doors behind them forever. The proposal is therefore not sentimental, it is structural. It re-engineers risk. The city holds its breath as these separate currents begin to converge. A basement that waits like a wound. A detective who remembers the weight of another person's life in his hands. Two women trying to reinvent themselves before their history reins them back. A mother whose grief always sharpens into action, now finding that action corralled by statutes and procedures. A wife in an interrogation room turning logic into a flotation device and throwing the heaviest name she knows toward the shore. A man built for rescue testing the walls of a system that prefers neat villains. A broker of power deciding whether a chapel is a safer room than a precinct. Port Charles has survived worse, but it has also forgotten better. The city is never more itself than when it tries to outrun yesterday with a faster story. By late afternoon, Cody's breadcrumb trail hardens under his boots. Out back, the vague clue that sounded like misdirection resolves into coordinates that do not care about metaphor. Doors that were supposed to stay closed present themselves. Somewhere a key waits in the wrong pocket. Cody's instincts, half feral and half ethical, tell him he is approaching a moment that will ask him to become either the man he wants to be or the man his past predicts. He does not yet know the hostage's name. He does not yet know the lineage of consequences knotted to that name, the lovers, the enemies, the legal grenades with pins already pulled. He only knows that the air changes at the threshold and that crossing it is how you learn who you are when no one is watching. The last light fades and the chessboard reveals the trap built into its edges. If Cody opens the door, he invites the story to widen. If he walks away, he becomes a participant in a cruelty he did not sign. If Willow's accusation sticks, the Corinthos empire will eat its own to stop the bleeding. If it fails, the blowback will find a new target with equal appetite. If Sonny accepts Carly's legal proposition, they will marry for silence and sleep under the same roof as the law they have outmaneuvered. If he refuses, he risks watching the person who knows him best become the state's best witness against him, even by accident. If Nina breaks on the rocks of process, she will either shatter into penance or consolidate into something harder. If Christina and Ava can outrun the gravity of what they've done, they might yet discover that reinvention is less an escape than an apprenticeship to consequences. By night, Port Charles looks almost merciful, windows lit, streets calmed, sirens more suggestion than sentence. But the city is a ledger, and the day has written more lines than anyone can reconcile in one sitting. Rick's imagined rescue hangs in the air like a promise the world is still negotiating. Molly's faith in Cody becomes a quiet bet placed on character over history. Justine Turner's patience remains the cold spine of a system that will not be hurried, and Jen Sidwell's swagger remains the hot breath of one that can be manipulated. Drew sharpens his questions, not to destroy an enemy but to prevent the wrong person from being cemented into the role. Willow steadies herself for the long wait between accusation and adjudication, where reputations are tried in public and facts are sorted in private. Nina measures the cost of demanding immediacy in a building designed to deny it. Christina and Ava rehearse a future that may or may not let them in. Sunny studies the lines on Carly's face and realizes they are not maps back to what they once were, they are warning signs for what they will need to become if they intend to survive this intact. Nothing is resolved, and yet everything has shifted. The ground has been prepared for rescues and reckonings, for a basement door to open and for a chapel door to close, for a mother to bargain with the state and for a husband to bargain with himself, for a city to witness once again that justice and mercy are not opposites so much as two roads that sometimes run close enough to share a shoulder. Tomorrow will bring the sound of footsteps on stairs and the soft click of a lock learning a new story. It will bring the slow turn of a ring on a finger and the fast turn of a rumor in a bar. It will bring the first true clue or the last false hope. But tonight belongs to the hinge, this tense, electric middle where intentions harden into acts and acts harden into history. And in that middle, each of them. Carly, Sunny, Rick, Elizabeth, Cody, Molly, Christina, Ava, Nina, Willow, Chase, Drew, Sidwell, holds a piece of the city's moral weather in their hands, deciding whether the next storm will clear the air or drown them in it.